Onesies, a podcast of one season wonders, blunders, and whatever the fuck we're watching this season, uh, which is Joe's life. My name's Andrew.
Hi, I'm Emily.
And yes, we are watching 1993's ABC sitcom Joe's Life, starring Peter Honorati, Mary Page Keller,
Mimi Kennedy.
Mimi Kennedy, George DeCenzo, convicted rapist Danny Masterson, and that poor guy, the sidekick, or not even, he's not even the sidekick.
Ray.
John Marshall Jones.
Yeah.
Who actually didn't have as bad of a time this episode.
Not too bad. I still felt bad for him.
Well, I feel bad for lots of people involved in this. I feel really bad for the daughter.
I feel really bad for the teenage girl who came in for her last scene. No, the girlfriend. Ugh.
Well, this is the problem about talking about things made in the 90s.
I know.
Yes. Okay, so do you have three things?
I have three kind of broad things. I want to talk about Just Say No and the weird I learned it from you, Mom narrative that's happening in this.
Women are responsible for quite a lot of wrong things going back to Eve, as you recall.
I want to talk about it's kind of the generic family sitcom structure and how it's basically just a double act, which I don't know why I'm just realizing this now, but I am. And how much is packed into 23 minutes or whatever? It's a lot. Like my subjects this time are pretty broad because I know we're going to talk about all the dumb shit we're going to talk about, but I feel like there are a lot of characters and every single one of them gets screen time so far in both episodes that we've watched. There's never like dad's out of town, so it's just mom and the kids. It's always everybody. And they all get, even if it's just 3 minutes of screen time, they all get some. It's
Thank your agent. Thank your agent, baby.
I guess.
Okay, so my things will be killed the old lady, so it worked good. I don't know. Bazooms. Oh yeah, definitely bazooms. You're kind of gonna handle the mother anger thing. Mimi Kennedy, actually, will be my third thing.
Okay.
So, if you missed last week's episode, we talked
tirade. It was more of a tirade.
It was more of a tirade. We talked for approximately 85 minutes, and I think about 20 of it was about this shitty show. Is this episode better than last time? Technically, but there's more Danny Masterson in it, so it's worse. But we open with Joe and what's the wife's name?
I forget.
Sandy.
What a weird name.
Sandy Gennaro.
Also, Gennaro is a hilarious name because it's like generic. It reminds me of the word generic, which, you know, you could interpret as this being just a generic American family.
It kind of is. Especially since you have two Italian dads married to wasps. And then their kids are all played by wasps, but with Italian last names.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot to unpack there. But first, we need to talk about Mitch and Natalie.
Oh gosh.
They're couples friends. So Joe and Sandy are getting home from a night out with their couples friends. And Joe's bitching about how obnoxious Mitch is.
And I had written down antisocial men because I have an antisocial man in my house. But I always find male friendships to be very odd, like straight, cis, white male friendships to be very odd. And I thought that's where this was going, but it's not at all.
But you will get to see some of that later in odd.
Yeah.
We'll get to it. Okay. No, because toxic masculinity is good. This is a show about toxic masculinity being good. So yeah, Mitch chews gum while he's eating. He wears an ugly toupee. He had his kidney stone out and he brought it with. Um, but then they get home and the daughter's laying on the couch watching TV and she babysat her brothers. And so she wants to be paid. And Joe says, "Oh, you want to be paid? You ate all these groceries. That cost $12. Nothing for you."
Yeah. Women's labor.
Unpaid, unpaid women's labor. But yeah, so if we were curious whether or not they were going to be shitty to the kids, yes, they're going to be shitty to the kids.
Yeah.
So they go upstairs. They see the sons have a really nice bedroom. I've
It's
never
big.
had a bedroom that size. It is.
And it answers our question we were talking about last week, how big their house is. And we because we didn't see the kids' bedroom, we did not realize that the boys shared a bedroom, but it's still a 4-bedroom house. Well, no, 3-bedroom house. So that's still pretty fucking big.
But I mean, the bedroom it's like in an L shape. The set is in an L shape, and then they have a private bath in
They
that
have their
bedroom.
own bathroom, yeah.
And so the Paulie, I think is his name. Is that
Yeah.
the older son isn't in bed, which is not a great shot. They see the little one in bed, and then they barely see the other bed before Joe's knocking on the bathroom door. "Paulie, are you in there?" And he throws up. But then mom smells something. Is that cigarette smoke? And is that where we get our credits? Yes.
Yeah, pretty much.
Joe's response is, "You better be on fire in there."
He's not. He's not on fire.
He got some cigarettes
from his bad influence cousin,
which is
Leo.
We have to deal with that. Like, we go downstairs where they ground him and he won't tell who gave him the cigarettes. They accuse the daughter of doing it, and she's like, "Smoking is bad." And it's like, yes, smoking is bad. This show that takes place in 1993 in New Jersey is all about how smoking is bad.
You and I are of the generation of the just say no. I know that's more about drugs, but I really feel like in the 90s and late 80s, they really amped up their message about cigarette smoking. I remember all the commercials where, people like boys don't want to go out on dates with girls who smoke because they taste like cigarettes and smell like cigarettes. And likewise, girls don't want to go on dates with boys for the same reason. And so this was something that was really being pushed to us in the 90s. And I think in the 80s, I was too young. I had family who smoked and I thought it was gross. But this continues throughout this episode of all of these different things are coming into play. And you're going to talk about Mimi Kennedy a little bit, and she gets a little bit of heat about her character smoking. Again, we don't see it though. I don't know if there was ever a time on network television that you saw people smoking.
I mean, there was. I mean,
like in you think in the 80s? Who smoked on television in the 80s? Selma Diamond. Selma Diamond smoked on Night Court.
Yes, and it was a joke that she was like smoked too much. But I mean, 70s, somebody had to smoke on. Yeah, it had to be a thing because there's a reference to Joe Camel in this, and
yes, and I remember that. that debate going down,
controversy.
Yeah,
Joe Camel just being too cool, and he would just encourage kids to want to be cool like him.
Because if you don't remember Joe Camel, he wasn't just the little drawn camel on the pack. He was a cartoon character who talked to you on commercials. And,
he was a cool guy.
He was a cool guy.
He was a cool dude.
Smoking is so cool. Why is it so cool? It is the coolest thing.
It is the coolest thing. I once had a history professor who was like, kids today are different. You grew up in the 50s. You sat around trying to practice how to smoke like Robert Mitchum. There you go.
Yeah.
Didn't he get lung cancer? Anyway, so we have a long back and forth before we find out it's Leo.
Yeah.
Paulie says he stole the cigarettes from Leo's car and Leo doesn't know. So Leo isn't guilty. And in fact, he is a victim. And this is a situation where we're all victims.
Yes, he is really, really pushing hard to take the heat off of himself and of Leo.
Yes. They're not going for it. They send him away. I don't know if we see him again the rest of the episode. He like calls down from being grounded in his room upstairs.
Yeah, he's grounded. So he is just upstairs.
And, you know, they've made the kids unhappy. So Joe's very proud of the work he's done as a parent.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then we go to the restaurant where Joe is going to talk to Leo because they have a restaurant shift together. And once again, we don't actually talk about Joe not having another job besides being a chef, basically. Being a head chef. That's Joe's only job.
So luckily, because the last episode, it was really drilled into us that him not having a job was causing him a crisis, which I kind of understand. But it was a lot last episode. So I'm kind of glad they went away from that.
So, but the first thing, there's a thing about how something about some other bad parenting advice of, does Joe trust Leo to tell him the truth? And he says yes, because he's not my kid. So that's really healthy parenting stuff.
Yeah, that was pretty gross.
And it really pays off well, too, in this episode. Because Joe's a fucking idiot. But
we're all learning lessons. It is the 90s still.
It is the 90s, except we're learning lessons where everybody else is like, yes, we tried telling you this and you didn't pay attention.
Yeah.
He's like, I didn't know I had to pay attention. I'm a man. So then they're at the restaurant. Leo's not there yet. And Joe gets a call at the restaurant from Mitch, who is inviting him to a basketball game, a Knicks Bulls game. Which
in 93 is a big fucking deal.
And it does cement that we are in the New York area.
Yes.
And so also, though, in the 90s, only Black men liked basketball. So there was a lot of coding to what types of sports you were allowed to like based on your skin color. And so, of course, John Marshall Jones really wants to go to the Knicks Bulls game.
But to be fair, at first, he wants Joe to go. He thinks Joe is crazy for turning down these tickets. Like, why don't you want to go? Why don't you want to go?
Yes, but we also have no inclination that Joe likes sports. Joe doesn't like anything.
No, because last episode, the wife made up to him by asking him about football.
That's right, football. Well, football is the white man's sport. Like, baseball is the whitest man's sport. Well, no, it's a little bit different. Baseball.
Side note: we were watching a baseball game on TV, college baseball. It was one of the universities was a historically Black college. It was all white guys on the team. It was almost exclusively white guys playing on a historically Black college.
There you go.
Baseball team. That was nuts.
I feel like there's a reverse racism lawsuit just waiting for the Supreme Court about how somebody didn't get a scholarship to an HBCU. Or I don't know, whatever. Maybe trim that. We're done. Now it's on. Okay. So we have that whole thing, and then Joe's like, there's no way I'm going to this thing. Mitch is a splinter. Okay, so then he talks to the old guy, played by Al Ruscio, who was in the first episode. He's the old waiter.
Yeah.
He's basically in the background of this scene and then disappears. He
seems to be, because I think it happened in the first episode too, because he's older, like he's supposed to be wiser, and then he just ends up being a shithead. regardless. Like, it seems like there's a bait and switch element to this character where people seek him out for advice and then he gives them shitty advice, but they recognize that it's shitty.
Does Joe recognize this is shitty advice? Because
Yes.
here's the advice. The advice when the old guy had to deal with the pushy couple was to,
Tell him back off.
tell him to back off. And his father-in-law never talked to him again. And in the family distress killed his wife. So it worked out in the end. Cool.
Yeah. But I think that being bad advice is part of the joke. And so Joe recognizes that it's not good advice.
We think, because it's not actually actionable, because Mitch is not a real guest.
That's true.
Leo comes into work. He's been having some car troubles. Joe pulls him aside. So we go from the kitchen to the wine cellar / Joe's brother's office set. So those are going to be our sets, it looks like, because they were in the pilot. And so they talk about the smoking. I didn't smoke in front of him. Yes, I did smoke in front of him.
He was supposed to be cool about it.
Yeah, why isn't he cool about it? What else? Lots of people smoke. My mom smokes, to which Joe says, okay, let's call her up and tell her you're smoking. And that freaks Leo out. And he's like, okay, if I quit smoking, will you promise not to tell my parents? And he says, yes, because it's a good deal or something.
Yeah.
So we then cut to, I think it's a commercial. It's either a commercial break or it's a scene break, but it cuts to Mitch on the phone again, off screen with Ray now. And Ray is telling him he can't come to the phone, blah, 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 blah. Same joke. I can't come. No, he can't come to the phone. No, he can't come to the phone. No, he can't come to the phone. No, he can't. Repetition's very funny. Repetition, just keep doing.
It's like funny, not funny, but it never got to the first funny in the first place.
Right. It's slightly better because John Marshall Jones has better timing than Peter Honorati, but it's still just like, this is why this is on network TV in 1993. I'll just change the channel, man. Like, whatever. But then this is where Dad, so the brother, okay, so then we get into this whole thing about Joe's just not a people person.
Right. Joe gets mad because Ray, says, I'm just a people person. People just don't annoy me the way they annoy you. And Joe goes on a tangent about how he's a people person. He talks to people every day. He deals with their bullshit every day. And it's like, oh boy.
I've been putting up with him my whole life.
Yeah.
So then Stan, George DeCenzo, Joe's brother, he's messing around on the coat rack and he knocks over Leo's coat and out falls a pack of cigarettes. So he accuses Leo, who then blames Joe for telling him. So then Joe's in trouble with Stan, which I thought was going to be the plot of the episode. Because last time they did this thing where they waited 10 minutes to introduce the actual sitcom plot. And I was like, okay, so the sitcom plot is now going to be something about Joe and Stan. No.
Yeah, no.
Okay. So now we cut to, so the last scene is kind of funny, but also not, because it's just not, it's Joe's going into Stan's office and Joe's like, I know everything you're going to tell me. And Stan's like, well, this next hour is going to be pretty boring for you then. And
I thought that was the funniest part of the whole thing.
It's the funniest episode. It's the funniest part. Yes, very easily. Speaking of which, let's get to Bazooms. So our next is Mom and Scotty Jean on the couch. And Scotty Jean's assignment is to cut out pictures for the alphabet. They are on B, and they have stayed up too late. So it's past bedtime, but they're still on B. Because Scotty Jean wants the bestest pictures he can find. So Scotty Jean doesn't want pictures of birds. But what about
everybody's going to have birds?
To which Mom says, well, I don't know, Scotty Jean. I just don't think we're going to be able to find a good picture of a booger. To which he says, well, what about these? And she goes, bras aren't appropriate or something. He's like, bras? These are bazooms. Waka, waka. Though they don't do anything with this joke in a way either.
The best joke that they did pull off with this is that dad walks in, hears the word bazooms. I don't know if it comes out of Scott's mouth or the wife's mouth, and just turns and walks away.
Yes.
It almost got me to laugh. Almost.
The follow-up on that would be that Joe said bazooms, but he doesn't. So
Right.
It's just like, or that he let Paulie say them or something, but he didn't. It's just like.
And mom has a little educational moment where she gets to say bazooms is disrespectful and you do not call them that. You call them breasts. So she's got BBC logic, right? If it's a medical term used by a doctor, you can say it on TV, but you don't call them bazooms. So then Scotty repeats breasts, 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 breasts.
This is ABC,
because
America's broadcasting company.
It's ABC pre-Disney, and quite frankly, looking through the newspaper, remembering back, there's a lot of ads for ladies' underclothes in newspapers and magazines. So poor kid.
So this is also the Joe Camel thing.
Yes.
Scotty Jean finds a picture of a camel.
For C, the letter C.
And he's like, Mom, why is he smoking? And he's smoking because it's inappropriate. And or blah, blah, blah. Okay, so then they go to the kitchen. There's a bazooms joke.
She criticizes Joe for not helping her. Well, kind of. She thanks him for helping her in that moment.
Which he did, right?
Yeah.
He's a bad father and a bad husband.
Yeah.
They're not partners. She's in charge of that. So then she's like, what's wrong, Joe? And he's like, well, I promised Leo I wouldn't tell Stan about the smoking, and then Stan found out, and now Stan's mad at me for undermining his authority. And so this is where Mary Page Keller is just responding with, oh. And Joe's like, that's not the kind of I wanted to hear, because he wanted a supportive oh. But then, just before they go to bed, there's a knock at the door.
Yes.
And it's Leo. And here is just this really weird scene. Because Leo's supposed to be, I guess he's supposed to be 16 or 17.
Because he can drive.
But he got grounded, or he got his car taken away because of the smoking. So
his dad was crazy. He was so mad. Took my car away. Ugh.
And so, I mean, if Danny Masterson doesn't have a car, I mean, somebody might kick you out of a restaurant when you're slipping in the roof and all. But then he needs a car to go to this party or this concert or something.
Yeah.
And he's like, can I have yours, Uncle Joe? And Joe's like, wait a second. Your punishment is you have no car. You're just trying to get around it from me? You've just been using me, Danny Masterson.
Oh, wait. He's manipulating people?
I can't believe it. This is also so much pointing, because I realized that Peter Onorati uses a lot of hand gestures. And this is pre-Matthew Perry on Friends. So
two things. One, I watched some videos of interviews with Peter Onorati, and we are saying his name correctly.
Okay.
Two, I went to see a movie in a movie theater, and there were some 20-something young men sitting in front of us talking about which Friends character they were. And I wanted to die. Sorry. I wanted to die in that moment. First of all, the one guy who asked the question said, I've never even seen really a full episode. And it's like, why are you doing this then? Why are you torturing everybody around you by having this conversation? Whatever. I hate Friends. But yes, we're saying Peter Onorati correctly.
That's good.
Yeah.
Paulie also thinks that he shouldn't be grounded anymore, but they remind him he is.
And he's shouting that down from upstairs. Yes. So he's pulling the little kid thing, which I'm sure I did, which is having your ear close to the door at all times to hear what's going on, and then interjecting, hence spoiling the fact that you are listening.
We don't actually see them in the kids in the bedroom yet, so we haven't had that.
Oh, we did. We saw them at one point. But early on.
When they were asleep, though.
Yeah.
But not like we never see all these perspectives.
Yeah.
No. Okay. So now.
So Leo leaves in a huff after Joe says no.
And it's bedtime, and it's commercial break probably. And now it's time for Mimi Kennedy's scene.
Yes.
Because she was not at the restaurant, but now it's her time, just like last episode, to come in and have a ladies scene with Mary Page Keller in the kitchen. And so she has had to quit smoking to also punish Leo, to show him it's wrong. Right. And she is going, and because Stan has never been a smoker, he doesn't understand the withdrawals. So her first thing is, she looks frazzled. Her first thing is, I'm going to get some of this coffee. And Mary Page Keller's like, you can't have that. It's sludge. And she's like, sludge has a lot of caffeine.
Sludge is good. I love sludge. Yeah. And then she's looking for food to eat. She keeps messing with her hair. She's acting kind of erratically and like somebody with the DTs. I mean, she's going through something.
She goes into the fridge for something healthy and is going for the butter. And then after Mary Page Keller stops her, she's like, notices her hands and is like, wait a second, somebody's been biting my nails. And this is the scene where you're like, oh, so Mimi Kennedy can rise above this stuff.
Yes, she was pretty good. But the fact that she is having to quit smoking, smoking is bad for you. I don't think people should smoke. If you do smoke, you should stop, even if it looks fucking cool as hell. It's not good for you. Don't do it. But she is taking the full responsibility for her son smoking. The son blames her. Clearly, the dad has blamed her. And so now she is as an adult who is legally allowed to purchase cigarettes, is being forced to quit a pretty terrible habit. I mean, it's a bad habit, and it is hard for people to quit. I've seen people try over and over. It's really hard, but the fact that she is essentially taking responsibility for her son starting smoking is baloney. Baloney, complete baloney. Oh, but she's such a good mother. Look, she's giving up this thing so she can set a good example for her son. Fuck off. Fuck off.
Remember when Eve ate the apple? You have to make up for that, Emily.
Jesus. That's my tirade. Fuck it. You know what? If I like to eat meat and you're a vegetarian, just let me have my meat. I'll let you have whatever vices you have. My eating meat does not hurt. Well, it hurts the animal, I guess. Doesn't hurt you, Andrew. Getting on my case.
Mimi Kennedy's secondhand smoke would have hurt Stan and Leo. Okay, just pointing out. But then the daughter comes in wearing like hippie clothes, and there's this whole interchange about, I thought you'd like it because you're old. And they're like, it's really cute, kid, but we can still see your zit. And then I guess it is Paul Lee who takes a Polaroid of her so he can catalog her zits, right?
I thought it was Scott.
Scotty Jean?
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe it's Scotty Jean. Okay, but then we find out that Joe is in on the couch and Stan has come over. So as Stan asks Joe if he's seen his baseball cap, the ladies are at the kitchen doorway whispering to each other a translation of what's really being said, translated from macho man speak. And what they're saying is, I'm sorry, I miss you, and I want to hang out with you. I want to be friends again. Except that's not what they're saying. And so there's this weird sort of just projection minimizing. It enforces that toxic masculinity is healthy, actually, because it really is just.
And the women are silly for trying to translate what they're saying into something that is.
But they're so in awe of their men doing this. nauseating.
It was pretty
So,
gross.
was directed by a woman. Okay.
It was pretty gross.
So, and then as they're leaving, the girls call to them because they're going to go buy him a hat because they can't find the presumably non-existent hat. Because if Joe or Stan's going to be a bald man in a hat, he'd have one on to wear over. So it's
Yeah.
whatever. But then they call after them, and Stan's like, "What are they talking about?" And Joe's like, "What they're saying is we need to bring them home some Haagen-Dazs, because ladies, am I right?" So that seems like it should be. It's kind of a natural end of the episode.
And there's like
But
credits and stuff, but then there's this post episode
yes,
scene that is. I almost shut it off.
right. No, we then get a resolution to the Mitch subplot.
Yes.
Where Ray is telling Joe that he loved the game. He had no problems with Mitch, whatever. But then the phone rings. Joe picks it up, says, "Hey, Ray, Mitch is on the phone. He wants to talk to you." And there's jokes about how Mitch would dislocate his shoulder and relocate it, which it's interesting that that wasn't considered cool in 1993 because it was a Riggs bit in Lethal Weapons 2 through 4.
Gotcha.
So, okay. Though, I mean, it's not, but whatever. But then, and Van Damme did it in movies. So, I mean, it was a thing. But then it turns out it's Sandy.
Yeah.
She's just calling to ask Joe when he's going to be home,
Yeah.
which also makes no fucking sense. Even in 1993, before cell phones, he works at a restaurant. They don't close at a different time every weeknight. Like, she should know this kind of thing. But then we find out that
that Ray was in fact annoyed by Mitch, and that Joe was just torturing him.
Yes, but yeah, and Joe and Ray didn't make it through the Knicks Bulls game.
Yeah, I thought they were going to make a bet. I thought they were going to make a bet in the scene.
Had a challenge. It was a challenge.
It was a challenge,
but not a bet.
I know,
which was interesting. But then Stan comes in and is like, no more smoking because, Barb ate a pencil, but she's better. But Leo has a date and it's okay because she's driving. And this is the young lady that you probably should not Google her name, but
yeah.
who knows? Yeah. So,
and there's a scene where, so there's a scene before she comes in. The brothers are talking about how, we did this. We're family. We stick up for each other. We help each other, blah, 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 blah. And then the teenage girl comes in and she's very sweet and polite. And Leo comes out and she sniffs him. She sniffs him to see if he has stopped smoking and says, "Oh, I knew you could do it." And then Joe and Stan realize that it had nothing to do with them and everything to do with him wanting to stop smoking to get a little fucking poon. Like a teenage boy.
Better than how Danny Masterson would have dealt with that situation.
Good point.
So, yes, and that's the end of the episode. Cool.
So yeah, that was it. I mean, it was better than the first episode because we didn't have to listen to Joe constantly needing affirmation from everybody around him. But at the same time, it was just replaced by Joe being a shitty person and not listening to the people who are telling him to stop being shitty until he deals with the consequences of him being shitty. And he has that realization. I mean, I guess if it's distilled down to its most pure form, that is what life is, right? A lot of times you just you don't listen to the people around you and you have to deal with the consequences before you learn. But it seems like in this world, something better could have come of this. I don't know. There are better family sitcoms.
Most, man, are most families? No, most, technically, most might be.
I don't know. I don't know, but it really reinforced to me the double act theme in family sitcoms where oftentimes the husband is sort of the idiot and the wife is the straight man, right? To use the parlance of comedy. But like something like Roseanne can be an idiot sometimes. Roseanne can be an idiot a lot now. um and female led sitcoms, oftentimes the female can be sort of the dumb one. But it just kind of struck me as being odd and how that works, because it really comes through with something like Everybody Loves Raymond, right?
That's kind of one of the traditional ones that, yes, it is and this is, I mean, this is right after Family Improvement, but this is basically going back to the honeymooners.
Yeah.
Is that you have a boob of a husband, and you have a hot, or no, it goes back to it's Dagwood and Blondie. So it starts, whatever the 30s comic strips is. You have a boob of a husband, you have a glamorous wife who's underappreciated because usually just because she's a woman. It gets more complicated as time moves on. But it's just about her adventures with her stupid husband.
Yeah.
This, however, removes Mary Page Keller from most of that part of it, except for the resolution.
Yeah.
Which is good in this episode, because in the first one, it was just Peter Onorati being emotionally abusive to his wife.
Yeah.
So this is better. Though next episode's about Joe not wanting to take a full-time job with Stan, which seems concerning considering.
Well, it's funny. The title of episode 3 of Joe's life is He Ain't Working, He's My Brother. There's a little nod to that in this, where Leo is late to report for duty and Stan says, "Oh, I'd fire him if I had another kid who worked for nothing." And I was like, fucking asshole. I mean, it's not like waiters or bussers get paid really well. Fucking asshole.
This is the American dream. You have children
and you exploit them.
Labor, and then they support you later in life because
of filial piety. Yeah.
It's how the patriarch, are you going to complain about both the patriarchy and capitalism, Emily? Jeez.
Sorry.
The only guest star next episode is the voice of a dinosaur, so maybe Joe will get eaten by a dinosaur.
Wouldn't that be nice?
That'd be so nice.
Maybe somebody takes drugs or something and then it gets trippy for a minute.
That'd be so nice.
Oh my God, the teenage girl's name is Amy? I had no idea. The daughter?
Yeah.
I had no clue. No clue. She looks familiar. Anyway.
8 more episodes to remember this by.
I know. 8 more episodes. I was reminded of Burns and Allen. Have you seen the George Burns and Gracie Allen show? The like sitcom show that they had in the 50s?
If I've seen clips, I've forgotten them.
It's pretty standard, except for obviously Gracie's the dumb one.
Was Dick Van Dyke with Mary Tyler Moore, was he a boob?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So this is an ancient tradition.
It's an ancient tradition. Well, I mean,
it is literally an ancient tradition. But
I mean, I'm sure we can find some. Well, no, because if you were a Victorian woman who ever did anything like that, you would end up institutionalized.
No, I just mean the double act in general. I just mean the double act in general.
You would end up institutionalized, and your husband would own your estate.
Oh, so, well, I don't have much, so.
Well, there you go.
Okay, well, any other parting thoughts before we move on? What an asshole. All of these people are kind of assholes, except for the women.
And they just are manipulated and gaslit. Like, yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's cool. It's a good example of, I actually would imagine that even if we subtract Tim Allen being a piece of crap, I bet Home Improvement ages better because I remember it having.
Well, you like some of the kids. The kids have plots.
And the wife was very sympathetic.
Yeah.
That's like the double-edged sword of Raymond is that it's not like Patricia Heaton hid that she was a piece of shit. She like used to make fun of like Matthew Shepard getting lynched to Peter Boyle and shit. Like she's a piece of she's a piece of shit.
I had no idea.
I don't know
monster.
that, but it would have been. She did shit like that. Like she would like upset him during between takes.
What a monster.
Yeah, she's a garbage human being.
God, I had no clue.
Great though. That sitcom she did with Kelsey Grammer was pretty good. Just a piece of shit.
Wow.
A lot of people are pieces of shit. It's weird. It doesn't affect your acting ability, which would explain. Okay, well, anyway.
We'll leave it at that. So next time,
hold on.
Oh, what?
We'll end on a high note. You Googled Mary Page Keller, and she is not.
She's not a monster.
There you go.
The last thing I saw, she was at the WGA strikes. She's not supporting certain Republican candidates who may or may not have been indicted a couple of times. So she is not a monster, and that made me a little bit happier. No Janine Turner here. That look on your face.
She's a piece of shit.
Oh my God, I just wish I could frame that. That was so beautiful.
Well, because remember when you found out and you were just like,
yeah.
You just ruined Northern Exposure forever. Thanks. I'll never watch it again. Like,
I'll probably still watch it, but yeah, no, she was
terrible.
She ended up being a monster too.
She was always a monster.
But Mary Page Keller's not, and that is excellent for the enjoyment of the show. Peter Onorati's not. That is excellent for the enjoyment of the show, even though he's not great. I'm still trying to dig and research his double act that apparently he had with somebody that may or may not have been problematic, but he was a stand-up comedian very briefly, is my understanding.
Between being an executive and being an actor, right? So
I'm excited about that. And next week's episode, as we said, is called Not Mind If I Smoke. He's my brother. He ain't working. He's my brother. Different director, a male director this time. Maybe it'll be better, huh?
No, because it's the guy who directed the pilot.
Oh, boo. Yeah. And Nick Toth or whatever. I've heard of him before.
I will say that this having a female director in 93 is kind of something. There were not a lot of women directing sitcoms in the 80s and 90s. I'm sorry, until probably 2014, there weren't a lot of women directing sitcoms.
Oh.
Yeah.
He was in Stripes. He was a producer on Parks and Recreation. Weird. Anyway, so that's the next episode. I'm very excited. They go really fast. Can I tell you? They go really fast. I think because what I had said before, every character has a little 3-minute thing and has their little side plot that doesn't really play into the larger thing at all, except it eats time. So it makes it go really fast because it's just bing, bang, boom. I love it. Okay. So thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Andrew, I'll see you in Television Land.
See you in Television Land.